The race to the 2018 midterms essentially begins this coming Monday with Republicans. Will they be able to capitalize on their end-of-year momentum, or will Democrats instead convince voters that a new direction is desperately needed in Washington? Joining me now, he's the Daily Caller editor-in-chief. Chris Bedford is here, also the author of the brand new, insanely hysterical book, The Art of the Donald. Go order 6 copies immediately. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Happy Boxing Day.
That's right, it is a happy Boxing Day. We just take packages to all our friends, and then we steal theirs. No, because I'm not a UPS driver. That's a joke, and so much fun. So, Chris, let me ask you, is there anything in this political climate that gives Republicans hope that they will be victorious in the midterms, which has historically given the ruling party a bad drubbing?
They can have hope that they can survive, but I wouldn't hope out that they're going to not lose a lot of their colleagues. This upcoming election, the left is pretty motivated. The conservatives may not be as motivated, especially with the GOP not really delivering on almost anything they said until the last month of the year when they got tax reform through, not being able to repeal Obamacare, all these different issues, but more importantly, a motivated left and Donald Trump. But I do think I'm a little more bullish than a lot of the people who I was talking to yesterday about this, who think that the Republicans could lose the House of Representatives. There's just so many of them. The Democrats would have to turn over more than 40 seats. I know everyone's up for election, but that's a really hard grab. And in the GOP Senate, their map is pretty safe. These are places that are staunchly Republican, and Democrats are going to have a very difficult time trying to get the Senate back from the president.
Yeah, and there are obviously a lot of bubbles in play still, and some would point to Wall Street as home to several of them. But what I want to know from you is, if the economy keeps improving, is that Republicans' best insurance policy?
You know, you'd think that they would be being rewarded by the American people. The economy is improving. They've passed tax reform, tax cuts for over 80% of the U.S. population, brought everything in line. We're not at peacetime right now, but the wars are going well, and enemies abroad are being defeated, and the country's being respected, and the campaign promises are being fulfilled. So you'd think they'd be happy, but Donald Trump and the GOP, they can be so divisive that people still attack them. They still call them stupid. They still say that racism. And here's actually, I think, a trick card that the Republicans have, is the Democrats haven't learned any lessons of the last election. They're not talking about the economy. They're not talking about working class people. They're not talking about families. They're talking about these really fringe, crazy issues, whether it's BLM or what have you, and it's not the kind of thing that's going to bring together their base and unite them outside of the far left fringe where the party kind of lives right now.
Well, I think you have the same problem in both parties, and that it's hard to identify just one base. It seems like there are a number of bases within each party. Where do you see the Democratic Party going? Do you still see them lurching leftward?
Harder left, absolutely. You look at Alabama, that should have been a Democratic landslide. They were literally running against an accused child molester. The problem here for the Democrats is they put up somebody who wants to abort babies a week before they're born, is a hard leftist, and that guy barely eked out a win, and they were super proud of themselves for that. Look, they beat an accused child molester. I don't see any sign Democrats are going to be able to work with the president, work with Republicans, do infrastructure, do anything, because their base doesn't want it. And they're only going to go further left. And, you know, the Blue Dogs, I was looking at the chart today of Congress. There are so few moderate Democrats left in the party, at least on the national level. That's where they're heading.
It's really interesting because I was talking with the Democratic strategist a few months ago, and she was saying that, you know, the big trend for her, specifically in the South and the Midwest, would be pro-life progressives. And funding these campaigns that are geographically very specific, that don't necessarily follow a national narrative. Is that the best chance that Democrats have?
That would be really smart. If you took the abortion issue off the table, and you just talked about politics and the politics of helping families out with government taxpayer money, or the politics of restraining government, put the Republicans versus the Democrats on that kind of a battlefield, Democrats will do a lot better in places like Alabama, a lot of places out in the West. And here's an interesting thing we have to watch in Alabama is the new Democratic senator going to veer right? Otherwise, he's going to get his butt kicked in the next election. He only won 1 of 7 congressional districts in that state. It was not a big victory. So we'll see if he goes right, and if there's anyone else like him who actually stands up and maybe is more pro-life.
That's interesting, yeah, because there are several Democratic senators who are in precarious positions in their states, which tend to vote more red, including, you know, people we talk about on the show a lot, Joe Donnelly in Indiana, Manchin in West Virginia, and some of these some of these senators will have to make some compromises and maybe step away from their party if they do want certain re-election.
Well, Joe Manchin's kind of puzzled me. I expected him to step further away from his party, and he kind of indicated that he might become a sort of a kingmaker right after Donald Trump was elected and the Republicans came in with one of the biggest majorities they've had yet. He hasn't done that yet so far, and I think that's a testament to the leadership of the Senate Democrats. They're pretty tough. They hold people in line generally. They keep their party in order, while the Republicans, like you said, a clown car, are running out every single door, not quite nearly as organized. But people like Joe Manchin in the state, he's the last Democrat left on a statewide level. He really should consider tacking further to the right to at least get the people in his state, the coal miners, the working families, back behind him.
Yeah, I remember when the president stood with that once Democratic governor and swung Republican, and that seemed like an invitation to Joe Manchin. We'll see what happens in that state and some of these other races. Chris Bedford, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate it.